You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode, the Sunday morning edition of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast, joined by my Sunday morning co-host, the wonderful, the amazing Detroit Beastie. You can find him over there at Twitter. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm good. You introduced me like a magician, the fantastic, the wonderful, magician on stage at some some crappy Las Vegas show. I'm happy. I'm a DFS magician. Let's run with it.
Well, that's where I was going with that. You've got the bottom of the barrel. You've got the DFS plays. If there's anybody out there that I'm going to ask a question when it comes to DFS, he's sitting here in the virtual studio with me, and that is Chris, the Detroit Beastie, over on Twitter. Make sure that you give him a follow because he's got amazing content for you guys. Coming out on the regular. So, lots of fun things. I don't know about you. This week was a more difficult week for me when I was looking through some of these matchups than they have been on some of these other ones, because I think we get a lot more defensive games this week than we necessarily have gotten the rest of the season, where it featured a lot of offense, a lot of those types of things. So for me, it was a little bit more difficult kind of going through some of my rankings, going through how I see some of these games, and kind of challenged me in some ways that some of these other ones haven't. I just was kind of curious to get your thoughts and what you had seen with some of that.
No, I'm with you. But for me, this is the week 5. That's when we can really start to sink our teeth into, projections, ownership percentages, and even in real life terms, the law of averages. These guys start to hit what we expect them to do. I believe I've said it every week on this broadcast leading up to this point, where, the first 3 weeks of the season, it's turmoil. It's murky. We don't know, some no-name guy off the practice squad will score a couple times. Nobody saw it coming. But I think all that nonsense is behind us. Week 5, realistically, this is the start of the next kind of, series of football games. They break it down 4 games at a time. So this starts the new, weekly calendar year, however you want to put it. So most NFL teams, they concentrate 4 games at a time. So the first 4 are behind us. Let's get into the next 4. And to be honest, from a DFS perspective, it's kind of cleared up a little bit for me in terms of what players to grab and the prices and everything. And even seasonal fantasy football formats, these guys start to hit what we expect them to do, hit their stride, let's say.
I like it. And, we're getting some questions coming in right away. So for everybody on Twitter that is watching, we appreciate you tuning in. Unfortunately, with some of the things going on with StreamYard, I'm not able to pull your comments and put them directly on screen here, but I am keeping an eye out for that, and we'll make sure that we hit all of those questions as you guys throw them in here and we get to these things. So first question coming at 4PF Danny on Twitter. Hey guys, do you like Gainwell or Mckissick with Cook out today? What are your thoughts here?
It's Mckissick, and I'm not thinking twice. I mentioned Mckissick with the Team Rise or Fall broadcast, which is 4 hours long this morning. It's a great time. We go through every game with a fine-tooth comb, and we stopped, me and Mitch stopped right at J.D. Mckissick. I mean, it's too good to be true. J.D. Mckissick, really quick, for DFS formats, playing New Orleans. Mckissick, $5,300 on FanDuel, only $5,000 on DraftKings. J.D. Mckissick was also mentioned in Bottom of the Barrel this week, which is still out right now if you want to catch it really quick. But it looks like Terry McLaurin might be the only game in town. Gibson's a little banged up. Diami Brown, Curtis Samuel might not play. I mean, J.D. Mckissick could see double-digit targets in this one, and so I firmly believe Mckissick has an unbelievably fantastic game. And to take it a step further, I'm so into J.D. Mckissick this week. I think he's in one of the bigger winning DFS lineups. Is he going to be in the Millie Maker? Does someone win $100,000 with J.D. Mckissick? More than likely. So in terms of seasonal formats, absolutely, I'm all in on J.D. McKissick this afternoon.
I like it, and especially too because when you look at the matchup there for Gainwell, right? Like he and Miles Sanders, they haven't really been featuring that running game in Philadelphia. Carolina's been good on the defensive side of the ball, so again the matchup's not great. So I'm now taking a second a backup running back that doesn't have a big featured role in an offense that hasn't featured the run game. Whereas on the flip side, Antonio Gibson, who's a guy I was incredibly high on coming into the season, has been dealing with a stress fracture in the shin, is one of the reports that was coming out there. So while he is suited up and looks like he's going to play, and it looks like Curtis Samuel, from the reports I just saw there as well, is going to be active on this one. JD McKissick has had a featured role in this offense, and they do look to mix him in and bring him into it. And I don't see that changing. And with New Orleans, you've got to throw some different looks in there because that defense at times has been really good this season. So I think that Washington's going to look to and feature him and try and add another wrinkle into that. And I don't see that happening on the other side with Gainwell. So I'm with you. I think McKissick is the answer there. We got another question coming in here on YouTube. Woody the Badger, thanks for tuning in. Thielen or Jamar Chase at flex in PPR?
Ooh, well, here's my deal with this. I've learned over the years, people ask me starter sit questions. They probably ask you start sit questions too. What I do is I read through my projections for each player and I let the user make the decision. And that's just a trick of the trade, because if I were to tell Woody the Badger, oh, you should start player A and player B was the move, I'm not catching crap. Hey, Chris, you're a dummy. You told me. So I'll give you what I have for the projections and you can make the decision here. And I'll tell you which kind of way I'm leaning. I have Thielen for about 7 or 8 targets, 5 receptions, 65 yards or so, and I do have Thielen finding the end zone here. With Jamar Chase, almost the exact same stat line, but I don't think he finds the end zone, so touchdown is the booster here. Give me Adam Thielen, Woody.
Yeah, and it's that close for me too. When I was looking through my projections, I see both of these guys with roughly about 80 yards. I do think that Thielen will see a couple more targets than Chase does, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow hook up on a long touchdown. I can see that one playing out, and that's actually how I had that one statted out, to the point where I see Jamar, hooking up on one of those 40-yard bombs. But touchdowns are incredibly tough to predict. So again, when I start looking at these deals, I go similar to you. But if I've got both players scoring a touchdown, which in this case I do see both of these guys getting in the end zone this week, I'm going to go with a guy that's going to see probably more consistent targeting. And I'm going to go with a guy that's going to get most of his work on shorter intermediate type of things. Like when I was looking through this, Jamar Chase is going to be a boom bust type of play, more for me this week, simply because, again, when I was looking through that, I can see him rocking out a 40-yard touchdown. But and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Jair Alexander just went on the IR. So Green Bay secondary's down their key lockdown corner. The guy that they were going to flex and shadow all over the place, that most likely was going to be on either T. Higgins or Jamar Chase and take one of them out of the game a little bit. They're now down that guy. So I can see a long touchdown bomb, but when I'm projecting longer type of touchdown bombs there, and I've got two guys that are similar stat lines, I'm going to go with the more consistent work. That is Thielen there for me as well.
Yeah, and
sorry, that took a while to get to.
Yeah. Oh, well, Delvin Cook has officially been made inactive. So,
Correct.
I mean, that's just another boost. They're playing the Detroit Lions. So I think you can pencil in, actually carve it in stone. Kirk Cousins, 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I wouldn't be shocked if Thielen caught 2 of those. So that's the way I'm leaning.
Yeah, I like that as well. So Woody the Better says he was leaning Thielen too. Could go either way. Thielen is targeted in the end zone more. Absolutely. That's what Chris was just saying there. So yeah, I think you've come to your decision there. Good job there, Woody. Take it to the Hizzy on YouTube, and those guys have a great show. If you haven't had a chance to check them out, hop over to their channel, check it out. Of course, after this broadcast is done. But took Chase over 4.5 catches today, but I like Thielen to find pay dirt. So he's chiming in on Woody the Badger's question there as well. I like it. I don't have any problems with those. Any thoughts on this?
No, let's get into the first game that I have that I want to discuss here. Philadelphia at Carolina. Now, this one, I believe it opened up at about 40, over-under at about 45 points. It's been bumped up. As it stands right now, the over-under is at 46 points. Philadelphia is getting 3 points in all the games this afternoon. And I'm not being weird just because it's a live broadcast here, but this game is my favorite one of the slate. Actually in the top 3, but it's close there. The Philadelphia Eagles head to Carolina, And look at both of these quarterbacks really quick, Derek. Jalen Hurts, Sam Darnold. Which way are we going to go from a seasonal perspective? Yeah, if you have Jalen Hurts, stud, start. Sam Darnold, same thing. I know Christian McCaffrey is doubtful. I haven't been able to check.
I just saw he's ruled out.
Yeah, so Christian McCaffrey is not playing. So if you have Chuba Hubbard in your seasonal formats, sure, go ahead and play him. DJ Moore, stud. Robbie Anderson. I'm partial to DJ Moore, so I wouldn't want to touch Robbie Anderson much. I think Terrace Marshall does something of note here. And then on the Philadelphia side of things, in a DFS perspective, we know, I would imagine this broadcast, it's all seasonal fantasy sports question. That's why, I think you have me on to kind of put a DFS spin on things here. And Jalen Hurts is one of the only quarterbacks aside from like Kyler Murray who I would be cool playing with naked, as they say, not, he'll be fully clothed. Dak Jalen Hurts with any of his wide receivers or running backs. Jalen Hurts gets enough done with his arm and his legs to get what we need here. Jalen Hurts, $8,100 on FanDuel, only $7,000 on DraftKings. He is one of my favorite plays in the slate total, seasonal formats and DFS formats. Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, which way are we going to lean? What's shocking to me, Derek, is on FanDuel, Sanders is $5,900. You would think Kenneth Gainwell, there's a healthy gap in between them two. Gainwell's only $200 less. He's $5,700 on FanDuel as well. So in Philadelphia, I do have them winning this game about 28-27 here. So there are a ton of fantasy points to go around in this one, but I believe we're going to have to be specific with the points that we choose. Seasonal formats, I'm starting all my Eagles, I'm starting all my Carolina Panthers. In DFS formats, I would probably just keep it, not a full game stack. Jalen Hurts and that's it. On the other side of things, I love the idea of stacking Sam Darnold with DJ Moore, and that's how I'm looking at this game. Philadelphia 28-27. Therefore, I'm taking Philadelphia as well. Philadelphia's getting 3 points, and I have them winning outright. So all my chips in are in Philadelphia this afternoon.
Gotcha. I like it. I see that one playing out a little bit different. I see Carolina pulling that thing out, but I love all of those plays that you're given there. I do think that for season long, Robbie Anderson is, a lot of folks are down on him in this one. He's a guy that a lot of folks, while the stat line didn't look great last week, we saw the shift in that happen with McCaffrey being out. And I think that shift continues here, where DJ Moore will get the bulk of the work, will be absolutely amazing for fantasy purposes. But I do see Robbie Anderson getting, again, around the double-digit target mark. And I'm going to so if you've got a flex type of play and you're looking at that, I like Robbie Anderson for a flex type of play this week because of the volume that I see him getting around double-digit targets. I see him bringing in probably about 7 of those things. And so he could be relevant in a lot of formats today. But when it comes to the DFS format, I think you're right. I like that stack with Darnold and more as well. So couple of questions coming in. So we'll hit a couple of these things real quick, and then we'll get on to my game. Cook is ruled out, half point PPR. Would you start flex of Madison or Swift?
I think I'm going to go Mattinson here. We saw what the kid did last week when Delvin Cook was out. I think, Mattinson is a safe bet against the Lions to reach, to get over that 100-yard total yardage, maybe 100-plus yards all on the ground here, against the Lions who, as we know, I'll give you it right now, the Lions are 31st overall against opposing against opposing running backs. So I'm all in on Alexander Mattinson given that matchup, although DeAndre Swift got a questionable tag. This kid looks healthy. He's looked better and better each week. Minnesota is 18th overall against opposing running backs, but given the two, I would prefer Alexander Madison, who is $500 more in DFS formats as well, being Swift is $6,900 and Mattinson is $6,500.
Right. I like it. If it's a full point PPR, that might shift a little bit more towards Swift for me. But the half point, I think that's going to keep that in the Madison realm there as well, because he'll get all the work on the ground plus some of the additional work through the air. Whereas I think the Lions, where you're going to get the value out of Swift, is going to be because they're going to be trailing. They're going to be in a negative game script, in which case DeAndre Swift becomes the check down safety valve option out of that offense. And that's where he's going to point that thing out, is going to be the fact that he probably gets 6 receptions for about 50 yards and maybe gets into the end zone type of thing. But the running attack is not going to be what gets you there. Whereas Madison will put up a healthy dose of both. And so it's Madison for me on that one. One more quick question here. This one coming from the Fantasy Futurist over there on YouTube. Sup, y'all? Start Ryan Tannehill or Sam Darnold today? For me, it's Sam Darnold.
Yeah, Sam Darnold, and I'm not thinking twice.
Right. That's where I'm at as well. So my game that I was looking at in this one is Green Bay Packers heading over to Cincinnati to face the Bengals. And the over-under on this one was about 50.5. Last I looked, with about a 3 points favorite for the Green Bay Packers. Now, on our Friday night show where we break down some of these things, I called for the Packers to win by about 3 and have it be really close to a push on the over, is how I saw that. With some of this news coming out with that Jair Alexander, I've actually shifted how I'm looking at this game a little bit, to the point where I see the Bengals actually winning this one. The home game, I see this thing playing out about 28-24 when it's all said and done. If you've got the Packers offensive players, you're going to start them, right? You're going to start your Aaron Rodgers. You're going to start your Aaron Jones. You're going to start your Devontae Adams. Words and names are tough this morning. And as well as the fact that you can look at starting Bobby Tonyan, Randall Cobb. I think that what we saw last week was more of an anomaly, more than what we'll see going forward. But I think he'll still see some options in there. But again, I'm not even comfortable necessarily putting him in a flex type of option for myself. As far as the Bengals go, T. Higgins is back. One of those, I'm always leery to start a guy and play him in the season-long format coming directly off of an injury. But I think he's going to be heavily targeted in this thing. I look for Tyler Boyd to potentially take a little bit of a step back. A lot of the volume that he was getting, I believe, had to do with the fact that Higgins was out there. So I think you'll see his volume come down a little bit. Higgins, our Boyd will still be viable. I'm starting him in a flex in one of my home leagues this week as well. I'm not necessarily excited about this Bengals backfield, where it looks like Joe Mixon is going to play, but it is going to be, I don't think you're going to see the workload that we've become accustomed to seeing on this one, to the point where now it's going to be a mix between him and Samaje Perine. Maybe mix in a little bit of Chris Evans in there, just to kind of keep his workload light. So I'm staying away from the Bengals backfield entirely in this one. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you. In bottom of the barrel, my whole argument to Chris Evans does not play. I mean, at this stage in the game, you said Joe Mixon is active, high ankle sprain. I know that stuff kind of nags. I'm surprised he's playing this week, and I wish him the best. But you know what? I'm still going to mention Chris Evans. I did all the work all week and the writing and everything, so might as well use it. Chris Evans, $4,800 on FanDuel, $4,000 on DraftKings, and Green Bay's 19th overall against opposing running backs. This game, what you said, it's pretty close to what I have. You just flip-flop who wins. I have the final score being Green Bay 28 and Cincinnati around 20. I'll give you the 24 points in a losing effort for Cincinnati. In terms of player moves, yeah, you're going to start all your Green Bay Packers. And personally speaking, if anybody wants to write this down, please. And if I fail on it, I fail on it. I think the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and Aaron Jones, they're always in play in any and all formats. But I think specifically this week, that three-headed monster, that trio, that trifecta, any other adjectives I can say, I think those three players they can be in like a massive winning lineup. I think those three players right there could be the ticket to some big time winnings on FanDuel or DraftKings this afternoon.
I like it. What's the next matchup that you've got on your slate and that you're looking at?
Well, your hometown team, the Denver Broncos, go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one here, over under, it opened at 40.5, and let me bring it up what I have now. It's gone down a half a point. The over under now is at 39.5 points in this one. So I love the under in this one, and it's not. It's exactly why you think it. So Ben Roethlisberger looks, he's done. He's washed. I mean, he's short hopping balls. He can't make a throw. And I mentioned in the summer, I believe it was early spring, so at the end of May or early June here, I wrote my Fantasy Heaven and my Fantasy Hell article. And in Hell, I mentioned Ben Roethlisberger specifically. I said, just looking at him in the spring and the summer, he looked off. He looked, old. I hate to say that because I believe Ben and I might be the same age. I think he's in his late 30s. I'm 37 years old, but I have the luxury of I've never played professional football, so I would imagine that ages you 10, 15 years in a fast-forward kind of motion here. I think the wheels completely fall off the Pittsburgh Steelers in this one. I mentioned in the summer that Ben Roethlisberger he's going to retire not on his own accord. He's going to be forced to retire. The ownership or the brass is going to say, you know what, it's time that you let's look for other options. Or unfortunately, I don't wish this, but there's going to be some sort of injury, running to the sideline. He gets his leg rolled up on something like that, where he's going to get injured for, like a 3-4 week period, and they get in a backup quarterback and they just don't look back, because that's how bad Ben Roethlisberger has looked. So I look for Denver to completely, play well in this one. I have Denver winning about 24-14. So I think the point spread here, Denver's -1. I'd be happy taking Denver minus the 1 here. And on the Denver side of the ball, not too much to like from a fantasy perspective or a DFS perspective. I know Melvin Gordon looks to be active today, but he was, kind of hemming and hawing, questionable all week with some sort of quad injury. If he doesn't play, I'm all in on Javonte Williams. If Melvin Gordon does play, I'm all in on Javonte Williams. It doesn't matter to me. How many times have we seen, a running back with a quad injury? I mean, that's like the meat of your leg. That's your thigh right there. Who's to say that the first possession of the game or the first quarter of the game, he doesn't tweak something and they say, you know what, let's just ice it. We have this kid here. And that's what Melvin Gordon doesn't want. We both know, Derek and I, that Javonte Williams is a stud. He's my rookie RB1, has been for months. I think Javonte grabs the reins of this RB1 role and doesn't look back after this week. Up to the week 5 so far, it's literally, you can slice it right down the middle in terms of carries. 13 carries apiece last week, 11 apiece. I mean, they've split everything right down the middle here. So Melvin Gordon, I would imagine, isn't 100%, and he wants to play because he doesn't want the young kid taking his job. But I think after this week, his leg is not going to hold up the way he thinks it is, and his worst fears will be confirmed. Javonte Williams, new RB1, and Ben Roethlisberger and the Pittsburgh Steelers completely flounder, and they don't look good. And the changing of the guard here on both sides of the ball, one on running back, one on the quarterback side, Derek.
I like it. You and I had the same Denver scoring the same amount of points. Yeah, I had them at 24 as well. I had Pittsburgh scoring just a little bit more in there, but I liked it. I like it a lot. One other thing of note: Cortland Sutton has been dealing with an injury. It looks like he is going to be active, but that could be also a potential slow up there for the Denver side of things as well. One more question coming in here. CEH or Jonathan Taylor PPR? Well, one of the games that I was going to highlight, and we'll go ahead and head there now, is the Buffalo and Kansas City game, which I know a lot of folks are going to be tuning in tonight. That's a great Sunday night type of matchup here. Yeah. I see this game a little bit different than what I've seen out there as far as how folks are seeing this one play out. I think that you're going to see this one probably play out a little bit closer to what we saw the Kansas City and Cleveland game look like for that first week of the season, where a lot of folks thought that was going to be another high scoring affair and a lot of, going up and down the fields, a lot of fireworks going there. And it turned into a little bit more of a defensive slugfest in there. And I think that's how this game is going to play out a little bit more so. Not necessarily from Kansas City side of it, but that Buffalo defense has been very good this season. And I see them being able to hold the Chiefs closer into that 20 type of point range. And when you hold Kansas City under 30 points, they become very beatable. So when it's all said and done, I see the Bills winning this one outright, and I see the under coming in on this one just barely. So it's a high point total where you're talking 56.5 was the last time that I pulled this game up and looked at the point total on this one. So I see this thing coming in just under. That being the case, Kansas City will still move the ball, but they don't look to have the ability to move the ball at will like we've seen in the past couple of seasons this year. And that being the case, I think they're going to have to find some other options in this deal. So to get back to your question there, whether it's CEH or Jonathan Taylor, I'm going to lean the Jonathan Taylor route on this. I think CEH will still have a good game, but I don't see him having these bigger games like we've seen each of the past 2 weeks here. I don't think that he falls into the end zone, which is going to limit his upside on this one. But I think that he'll still get some passing work in there. He'll still get probably about 15 carries when it's all said and done. So I don't see a great stat line coming for CEH. He'll still be usable, and I had him ranked kind of right down there around RB23 when it was all said and done this week, whereas Jonathan Taylor was up there at RB15 for me. So that's just kind of how I had that one ranked. And I see Jonathan Taylor having a bigger workload and finding the end zone in that game against Baltimore. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, Derek, I know and anybody else that's watching this, I record, single game DFS videos, right? For, Monday night, Thursday night, Sunday night. And my Buffalo Kansas City Showdown video is already done and submitted. It'll be published right at 1:00 after lock here. And I have no problem giving a little bit away from the video here. This game isn't going to go how people think it's going to go. People see Kansas City and put sunshine, rainbows, points. I think Kansas City struggles in this one. I have the final score being, maybe I shouldn't open with this, but I have Buffalo winning this game 21-14, 21-17, and it might be a little bit one-sided in Buffalo's favor. Buffalo is hot right now. They're riding some sort of streak right now. They've outscored their opponents 118-21, and they only give up 11 points a game as of late. In terms of total yardage, Buffalo only gives up. It was perfectly prepared. I have all my notes from when I recorded the video here. So Buffalo, they lead in takeaways. Their turnover margin is +7. They only allow 148-ish pass yards a game. They only give up just over 4 yards a play, and that's including passing and rushing and all that stuff here. So to me, I think Buffalo, this is completely one-sided game. I know that Clyde Edwards-Helaire kid's been on a heater, but I think it comes to an end Sunday night. And although it's at home, Buffalo is just too strong right now. And I love the idea of the NFL. To me, it's like a movie, right? It's like a scripted kind of movie here where, right, Buffalo will get the better of them tonight, and then they'll meet in the playoffs, and everybody will be talking about this game for months and leading up to the AFC Championship game, something like that. But I'm telling you now, hold your horses on your Kansas City Chiefs in DFS formats. Seasonal formats, I'd be a fool to tell people to bench Patrick. Who are you going to bench Patrick Mahomes for? Although, hold on a moment. I got a question that was unbelievably, I thought it was crazy wild. Somebody asked me, who would you start, Kirk Cousins or Patrick Mahomes? I said, you're silly for even asking that question. And it stayed at, that's all I've been able to think about the last few days. And in all honesty, I think I might go Kirk Cousins here, given the matchup, given the fact that Delvin Cook is out. But most cases, a lot of folks don't have the stones, and that's okay to start Kirk Cousins over Patrick Mahomes. I just want people to be aware, this Kansas City Chiefs team, it's not going to go how you think it's going to go. I think Zach Moss goes over 100 yards. First time anybody for Buffalo this season has gone over 100 yards in rushing. I love the tandem in DFS formats of Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. They have the second highest rush yards a game, 146 total yards for the Buffalo Bills on the ground a game. And together, Moss and Singletary, when they split the carries, they average together just over 4.5 yards a carry in this one. So I love the idea of double stacking both Buffalo running backs here. So a very long-winded way to answer Mustafa's question here, but I'm going Jonathan Taylor over Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. And then, I think we hit that one and kind of run that one dry there a little bit. So let's go ahead and head over to the Los Angeles Chargers, where I know that you've got the Browns going there, playing them. What were your thoughts on this game?
Well, again, the over-under in this, I always say it. I'll start every, kind of broadcast with it. The over-under in the Vegas spreads is and always will be the foundation to not only my seasonal fantasy football stuff, but also my DFS stuff. I mean, Vegas they've known since before you and I were born, when Sinatra was running around town, talking to books and running numbers here. So when you look at this game, the over-under, it opened at 49.5, and let me see what I have now. Yeah, and now it's at 47, so it's come down a full 2 points, and that tells you all you need to know. I locked in the under when it was at 49.5 on Monday, and it's come down 2 points, and I'd be a little bit apprehensive, but 2 points isn't enough to make me come off a game here. I have the Chargers winning, but it's going to be close. This is going to be another exciting game. I have the Chargers winning about 24-21 in this one, and in terms of seasonal fantasy formats, it's a no-brainer with the players: Herbert, Eckler, Keenan, Mike Williams, Baker, Chubb, Hunt, who's been unbelievably fantastic. From a DFS perspective, I think we should look at just be open-minded to look at Rashard Higgins here. Rashard, he's only $5,000 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, Higgins is $4,300. He's played well in the absence of Jarvis Landry, and I know the big story this week, Odell Beckham. Every week, this guy's got something going on, whether it's good or bad. Everybody's always talking about this guy, and I think that's what he revels in. That he loves when people are talking about him, whether it's good or bad. It's just PR 101. And he said, I've had a torn labrum, or my labrum in my arm's been trashed for like 10 years. Well, what are we going to do with that information? I'm fading Odell Beckham. I told you at the beginning of the season, I want nothing to do with ODB from a seasonal perspective, DFS perspective, and I'm not going to waver or falter from that one. So seasonal formats, you start your Browns, you start your Chargers. In DFS circles, look for Rashard Higgins. And to be honest with you, in DFS formats, I'm going to fade the Chargers. They're 12th overall. The Cleveland is 12th overall in defending opposing quarterbacks. They're second overall in defending running backs. So Austin Eckler, Larry Roundtree, the third, no, and Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Cleveland's 6th overall against opposing wide receivers. So in DFS formats, there are dozens and dozens of other teams and players I'd prefer to target other than the Chargers. So to me, this game is all from a realistic football perspective. I can't wait to see these two go at it.
Absolutely. That one's going to be a great game to watch. I've got that thing, a lot of what you were talking about. I've got that game very similar. I think that the lower the score is, that's going to favor the Browns. Because when this one kicks off and goes at it, the Los Angeles Chargers do a great job of having that fast break, big play, fast momentum type of offense to it. Whereas the Browns are one of the slowest pace of games out there in the NFL. So this is one of those that you see two opposing styles really coming together and come into play here. And this is one that I think that this game is going to be won and lost in the trenches of the offensive line and defensive line here. Really, when it comes down to it, can the Chargers hold back that pass rush from the Browns? And if they can do that, and they can give Herbert enough time to dissect this defense a little bit, they're going to be all right, and they're going to put up points. But if Jadeveon Clowney, if Myles Garrett can get home on this one, which they've been doing a lot, if they can do that and they can put a lot of pressure and make him get the ball out faster than he wants to, this game, I think, then swings towards the Browns' favor there a little bit. But again, I think the higher this point total goes, the more it favors the Chargers. The slower scoring it is, the more it's going to favor the Browns. And it's just a very interesting one. And like you said, I'm excited to watch this one. Let's go ahead and head over to my last game that I had breaking down, and that was the New York Giants heading over to the Dallas Cowboys. The over/under on that one, 52. The spread is Dallas went in by about 7 on this one, so they're favored by 7. This one, it was an interesting one because, again, I don't think that this one's going to be. This is a tough divisional matchup that these two just go at each other every single year, multiple times, and they kind of have each other's number, and they kind of have things figured out to the point where these things become a very hotly contested game more often than not when we see these two teams meet. I think that you're going to see, the Giants are coming off the win. Dallas has been looking good all season long, and Dallas has been riding. They've been winning games in ways that we didn't necessarily think that they would coming into the season. We thought that if Dallas was going to win games, they were going to be winning games on the right arm of Dak Prescott, having to throw the ball for 350 to 400 yards, putting up 40 points, and they've done that on the ground, where Zeke has been resurgent, which was something that the good old boys had called on that the Zeke have a resurgent type of season. But I say all of that to the fact that I think that this is going to be a lower scoring game. The over/under is one of the higher ones of the week, but I think you're going to see this thing ultimately be kind of a 23-20 type of matchup, maybe a 30-23 type of thing, where you're going to see the under come in on this. And I think that the Giants are going to get kind of that backdoor cover. They're going to find a way to keep that within that, where I think Dallas wins, but I do think that game's going to be closer than it's all said and done. Now, that being said, Dallas has been giving up a lot of points to the running back. Saquon is in play here, which is a major shift for anybody that's watched me over the course of the season. Saquon's in play. Saquon's looking good, and you're able to see him, bounce back to form there a little bit. But I'm playing every single player that I can in this one. From the Dallas side of it, I'm playing Daniel Jones. I think that he's a riskier play though, because I do see about two interceptions, potentially a fumble out of this one. So that may knock him out of a DFS type of play, may knock him out of even season long type of play there. When it comes to the pass catchers on that, I am not excited to really play any Giants pass catchers. But what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this game, it opened up in my notes. It opened up at about 51.5. And as it stands now, I believe you said it, it's been bumped up a point. It's now at 52.5. And I've always been interested in looking at the correlations between seasonal fantasy sports and DFS circles here. And if you look at this game now, Daniel Jones is his ownership on FanDuel and DraftKings is through the roof. So much so that you can, right now at this moment in time, you can consider Daniel Jones chalk right now, which makes me nervous, right? So for seasonal fantasy sports, bombs away with Daniel Jones. In DFS circles, it really makes me stop and think here. So if Daniel Jones is chalk and everybody's on board playing him, then you have to. The correlation here is there's got to be somebody to stack him with. Obviously Barkley, always a play. And of the wide receivers, Slayton and Shepard, they're already out. Everybody's going to be turning to Kenny Golladay. So Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, and Kenny Golladay through the roof in ownership percentage. Nobody's talking about John Ross III. John Ross III, $5,200 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, Ross III, only $3,400. And Dallas is right now 30th overall against opposing wide receivers. Now, I know you have to take that with a grain of salt because the Dallas Cowboys defense has looked pretty good. They got some ball hawking, safeties and cornerbacks in that defense here. So I'm telling you now, I think that the New York Giants, from a DFS perspective, are a trap, right? If you have the gall to stack Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, and Kenny Golladay, and it hits, then all love to you. I'm going to pivot from players in the same game to players in the same game. I love the idea of John Ross and even a little bit of a Kadarius Toney, who's $5,300 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, Toney is only $4,000 here. On the Dallas side of things, and now catch what I'm saying here, because this is weird too. I thought about this when I was doing my other broadcast here. So if you like the idea of stacking Zeke Elliott and what's his name, Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, then that in direct correlation means if they're going to be scoring points and doing what you expect them to do, the correlation is then you need to look towards the Giants side of the ball, Daniel Jones and all their pass catchers, which I just told you I don't want nothing to do with. So you see how one team in the same game can make you hate and love the opposite team in the same breath. Hopefully that makes sense to you. But what I'm getting broken down to its simplest form, if you're going to stack the Dallas Cowboys because you think they're going to put up 31 or 34 points, then that means the team on the opposite field, the New York Giants, are going to have to be playing from behind and throwing the football. So the correlation in this game is it's insane. I feel like I could sit down after this broadcast and write a complete dissertation on the ins and outs of DFS and what correlation means, and why the success of one team makes you have to like the other team and hate it at the same time, if that makes any sense, Derek.
It does. I like it. Guys, I think that's going to bring us to the end of this one. We do have one question out there, so we're going to answer that one before we sign off. This one coming from YouTube, Pata on YouTube, JD McKissick or Devin Singletary, full point PPR. I know that you gave the breakdown for Moss and Singletary. I kind of like McKissick on this one. I like absolutely. The PPR play for sure.
I mean, to me, it's J.D. McKissick, no-brainer, but I would stop to think about it if it was McKissick or Moss. Now, that's a conversation here, not really much of a convo. Give me J.D. McKissick. Yep,
same boat there. So, guys, I do believe that's going to wrap it up. I'm not seeing any other questions come in here. So, my co-host, Chris, at Detroit BC on Twitter. He's also part of Team Rise or Fall. You can find his work over there, teamrisefall.com. Any other, what did I miss? Where else can they connect with you and find you?
No, just be, at Detroit Beastie. I'm not a big promo guy because I think it takes away. We could be saying so much other cooler stuff. Just be mindful at 1 o'clock, my single game DFS video will be out and published in terms of Buffalo at Kansas City, which is going to be a fantastic game. Other than that, I just want people to be mindful in real life and on social media. Everybody, they listen to respond. They don't listen to understand. And that's what I think the biggest disconnect is here. While I'm talking, you're thinking, well, how can I top what Chris is saying? Why do we have to think like that? Listen to understand, and then the replies and the wit will come out from that. It's not always about, getting over on folks or one-upping folks. Listen to understand. So I wish everybody the best. Week 5 is here. I can't believe how fast it's going by. And with the blink of an eye, we're going to be here next week talking about week 8, week 9, and week 10. So stop, take it in, and enjoy yourselves. And I already know what you're going to say. For lunch this afternoon, I'm going to have Coney dogs with some tater tots. Coney dogs, hot dog, just dripped with Coney sauce, chili, and onions, and go from there. And I'm going to be barbecuing some ribs as well this afternoon. So just one last hurrah for summer. Let's barbecue some ribs.
I like it. I took a similar page, and I've got a pork butt out there smoking right now. So we've got some pulled pork coming nice. In this household later tonight. And I love that advice when you're talking about, listen to understand. Love that. Absolutely. Some sage advice like you always bring on these sign-ups. So I appreciate it. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Do me a favor, hop over on the YouTube channel, Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, catch all these live shows that you bring to you. I want to thank Chris again for my co-host for hopping in here on these Sundays. You can find him at Detroit BC on Twitter. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe.